They threw a bat on stage, and every night we do a show. You get all these crazy people that come and throw junk on stage, and I thought it was one of these rubber bats. Picture this. It's past midnight backstage in some dark whiskey-filled room where bands get ready. The Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, sits back in his chair with a faraway look, eyes full of many years of crazy times, love, and loud, cheering crowds. But tonight, he's not talking about being wild. He's talking about magic, the kind only certain women in rock music ever gave him. Stevie Nicks was the first name to come out of his mouth. He once said her voice was like a ghost wrapping around your back. Soft, scary, never forgotten. From the moment he heard her sing Rhiannon, something inside Ozzy changed. It was more than just liking her music. It was knowing her. There was something mysterious about Stevie that Ozzy never forgot. A wild spirit wrapped in soft clothes and dark shadows. They didn't just share a moment in history. They shared pain, an unspoken friendship of spiritual chaos, drugs, darkness, and dreams too bright to survive. In the early 80s, when Ozzy was on the edge, spinning out of control because of his demons, it was Stevie who found him backstage. No reporters, no spotlight. Just two broken famous people sitting in the same backstage room, trading broken pieces of themselves like ropes to save each other. She didn't comfort him with words. She just sat next to him, and that quiet screamed louder than any crowd ever had. To him, Stevie wasn't just a voice. She was a mirror with feathers and makeup. A spooky person that reminded him beauty could still come from ruins. That ghosts don't always scare. They sometimes make you better. Next, he talked about Ann Wilson, the thunder goddess of heart. Ozzy liked power, but Ann's was a different kind. It wasn't crazy or wild. It was steady, earth-shaking, coming from something very old. Her voice wasn't just powerful. It was like being judged. On a shared concert during a trip to Europe, Ozzy remembers standing quietly at the side of the stage, eyes wide, heart beating fast, as Ann let out a note that seemed to rip open the sky. It wasn't just amazement. It was giving up. They never shared big shows, never got mixed up in trouble, but what they shared went deeper, unbreakable respect. She didn't ask for attention with fires or big shows. She didn't need to, and sang like she was doing magic. With one breath, she could quiet a stadium. With one song line, she could make Ozzy, the crazy man, the famous person, the chaos himself, stand still. And that's what hit him most. Her calmness, her strength that didn't yell. For someone who built a kingdom on craziness, she reminded him of the quiet truths, those rare, special things that don't need to be loud to be powerful, to be unforgettable. It's kind of like saying people say, hey man, it's Ozzy. You know, it's like you got to go right away. You got to go, I'm Ozzy. And he's like, I'm here. Then he turned to Debbie Harry, their bell queen. Ozzy called her punk royalty with a knife in her smile, and it wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning and a nice thing said rolled into one. They met at a crazy after-party in New York. Blondie had just rocked the roof off CBGB, and Ozzy was already 3 drinks too many, wobbling between charm and trouble. Debbie didn't back down. She lit a cigarette, made her eyes small, and told him to be quiet because she wanted to hear the Ramones. That moment cut through the noise. Ozzy laughed, fell a little in love, and never forgot it. There was a fighting spirit in her, a queen who needed no castle. She didn't care about his fame, his big shows, or his chaos. She met him as an equal and challenged him with just a look. That independence, the way she moved like the rules never worked on her, reminded him of what rock was always supposed to be. Dangerous, easy, and totally real. Years later, when they met again, the electricity was still there. No romance, no drama. Just both knowing they were 2 famous people who'd lived through their own storms. Debbie wasn't just a singer to him. She was a force, a warning shot, a memory sharp enough to hurt, but too beautiful to feel bad about. Then came Joan Jett, and Ozzy's whole face lit up. I love rock and roll. Those words weren't just a song line. To him, they were a war cry, a promise made in blood, a reminder that fighting back wasn't just for the boys. Joan showed a kind of fierce independence that Ozzy always liked, but rarely met. She didn't just play with fire, she was fire. They met often, but one moment stayed burned in his memory. Backstage in 1984, Ozzy was falling apart, drugs, doubt, the darkness creeping in. Joan walked in like a knife, calm and sharp. "Pull yourself together, man," she said. No drama, no feeling sorry, just fire in her voice. And somehow in that single sentence, she reminded him of who he was. Joan didn't need big shows. She didn't have to scream or break things down. She stood still, never moving, and the world bent around her. She was cold metal wrapped in leather and makeup. The kind of fighter Ozzy would go to battle with or against without thinking twice. He didn't just like her, he worshipped her. Because Joan Jett didn't just survive rock and roll. She beat it on her terms with no sorry words and no giving up. When he brought up Patti Smith, his voice got softer. Ozzy once called her the priestess of punk. She wasn't a friend in the normal way, but her presence haunted his quieter moments, like a church song half remembered. Her voice wasn't loud in his life, but it was always there, whispering through pages and echoing from speakers when the world got too heavy. He read Just Kids like a holy book, word by word, like confession written in blood and ink. It wasn't just her anger or pain that pulled him in. It was her pureness, her refusal to be anything but herself. For a man whose whole life was wrapped in acting and big shows, Patti's raw poetry felt like a lifeline. In 1995, they met at a London event. No camera flashes, no big hellos, just a nod. Quiet forever. That single movement said more than any talk ever could. Two souls hurt by music, by fame, by living too loudly for too long, finding peace in knowing each other. She didn't need to say a word. She had already spoken to him in ways no one else ever had. And finally, there was Lita Ford. Of all the women, she was the one who truly walked through the same fire. Their paths were messy, explosive, and soaked in both greatness and destruction. They didn't just work together. They crashed into each other. In the studio, their voices danced between pain and beauty. Off the stage, their friendship was equally powerful, one made through pain, toughness, and the kind of wild loyalty that only two survivors can understand. Their duet, Close My Eyes Forever, wasn't just a song. It was a lifeline. Behind every note, there were sleepless nights, backstage fights, broken bottles, and quiet sorry words. But there was also laughter, healing, and moments of raw, unfiltered connection that neither of them could ever make again with anyone else. Ozzy never forgot how Lita stared down the chaos of the rock world like she owned it. She didn't back down when others doubted her, didn't stumble when the spotlight got mean. She stood tall, dressed in leather, and unshakable. And Ozzy, in all his craziness, saw her not as her work partner, but as a sister in arms. She wasn't just part of his story. She was one of the few who helped write the chapters he thought he'd never survive. Of all the women, she was the one he knew best. They worked together, fought, laughed, screamed. Lita wasn't just a name on a list. She was part of history. Their duet, Close My Eyes Forever, wasn't just a song. It was a moment in time where two survivors looked at each other and said, "We're still here." Through the fog of addiction, through the fire of fame, Lita stood her ground, and Ozzy loved her for it. 6 names, 6 storms, each woman never forgotten. Each one leaving fingerprints on the craziness that shaped Ozzy's world. And in his eyes, they weren't just rock women. They were rock fighters, survivors with scars like battle paint, with voices that could call up shadows and quiet chaos. To Ozzy, these weren't just nice things said. They were confessions, a gift to the muses who kept him from disappearing inside his own darkness. Glimpses into a soul shaped by blood, by memory, by the sharp screams of guitar strings, and the lullabies of a broken past. Each name wasn't just a favorite. They were lifelines wrapped in makeup and steel. These women didn't just survive rock's violent flow. They became its fiercest waves, crashing against every boundary, changing the shores of what women in music could be. And in his final breath of thinking back, Ozzy didn't just like them. He thanked them for saving parts of him the world never even saw, for showing him time and time again that even in the darkest noise, beauty could rise. 6 names, 6 storms. Each one a monument to fighting back. Each one carved into the history of a man who spent his life screaming into the empty space, only to be answered by voices stronger than fate.